Hello, it's Daniela. Hello, fellow classmates and Mr. Turner. In this video, I will be discussing the roles of the court officials in the courtroom. We have the defendants, the plaintiffs, the judge, and etc. So let's get into this video. To start, we'll start with the judge. Of course, that's one of the main players, and their role is to oversee the courtroom, oversee the case. They are the ones that listen to both sides, the prosecuting and the defense attorney, and they make the final decision after seeing all the evidence presented to them on both sides. And once both sides rest, they take everything in consideration. They leave it up to the jurors, of course, and we'll get into that about the jurors. And they make the final decision whether the defendant will be prosecuted or whether the charges is dropped, depending on how the arguments go. They do make the final decision. After that, we have the clerks, and the clerk's role of the court, of course, is to make sure that all documents are filed properly. They do the typing while the court is in session. They type up everything that's being said and record everything in the courtroom. They also have the role of making sure that all the paperwork is filed correctly, making sure that all the docket calls are ready for when court is in session. They do the swearing in for the witnesses or the victim, if they have a victim impact statement, just as well as if the victim cannot present and they have family members that was impacted in some way, those family members are also sworn in to give their victim impact statement. From there, we have the bailiffs. And the bailiff's roles, of course, is to protect everyone in the courtroom, to maintain the safety of all the individuals that are in the courtroom, and to make sure that the court runs smoothly, and supervise the activity that's going on in the court, make sure that everybody is cooperating and paying attention and being respectful to everyone around them that's in the courtroom, that's of course, that's being there for something that's important, of course, which is the case. Of course, that's why everybody is in the courtroom. And then the central players are the attorneys. We're going to start with the defense attorneys for the central players. The defense attorney are the ones that fight for the defendant. Their role is to, fight for the defendant, present as much evidence as they can, if there are any, to get the defendant a less charge or get the charges dropped for the defendant. They also, of course, keep in contact with the prosecutors, so that if they have to come to an agreement with the plea deal, they can discuss it and they can exchange information that's important for the court. And then we have the prosecuting attorneys, whose role is to fight against the defendant and get the defendant sentenced. And not sentenced, I'm sorry, we'll get the defense convicted. And so they use different things. They, bring the evidence in. They use victims if the victims are there. They may use the victim family members and witness if they have any. They'll also take those. And then the next player we have in the central players are the defendants. The defendants, or the accused, I shall say. And their role, of course, is to stay in close contact with their attorney, just so that their attorney is aware of the decision that the defendant wants to make, because they do have rights still as well, even though they are under investigation and they have this case against them. The defendant can also, if they would like, represent themselves in the court. If they do not want if they do not want a lawyer to represent them, they do have that choice to represent themselves, but get a lawyer if it's serious. The next one that's part of the central players, of course, is the victim. Their role is to stay in close contact with the prosecuting attorney, their attorneys, or the state attorney. And they typically are the ones, of course, they give their victim impact statement, which will definitely strengthen the case for them and for the prosecutors that's trying to fight against the defendant. So having that victim impact statement is a major role that a victim has to play, because they are the ones that was victimized in the case. They also may be called up to a stand to, talk about what happened. So they also have that role that they do play in the courtroom as well. So even with the victim impact statement, that helps the judge makes the, decision on the sentencing and how, the victim felt, and, what the victim went through at the time of the crime and things like that will have an impact on how the judge will sentence, how much time the judge may sentence the defendant to, if the defendant is convicted. Then the next one in the essential players are the members of the jury. The members of the jury role is to listen and watch all the evidence that is coming in to the court, listen to both sides. Do not pick and choose sides, just listen to everything, take everything into consideration, making sure that, they are focusing, that they're not talking to anyone outside of the courtroom about what's going on, about the case in general. If they do, typically it's the judge that they talk to, and that even has to be written in a letter, and that letter is read amongst everyone in the courtroom. So they typically don't really have any room to talk to nobody outside of the court. And if they do, they may get, in trouble. Most definitely they will. And both sides get to sit in and listen to that. If they do have a question for the judge. Now, another thing is the prosecutor and the defendant, as well as the victim and the defendant, they do get a jury call where they can pick, the jurors in the case as well. So that's another thing that's good for both sides, because they get to see who will be sitting into their case and things like that, and get a feel of everyone that'll be around them during the cases as well. And then the end players we have are the witnesses, and their role is to basically tell what they actually saw or what they actually heard. Not like anything, he say, she say. That's not allowed at all. The witness statement has to, come from them actually witnessing, seeing it with their own eyes, or even the defendant telling them these things. And it's better if they actually have like a recording or something like that, or either a recording or of the defendant, saying that they did these things, or if they have a video or anything to present, they will present that to the prosecutor, or, they can bring it to court if the judge deem it admissible to present in the court as well. Mostly the witness has to get on the stand and, be sworn in by someone, and then they'll go ahead, they'll sit next to the judge will listen to what they have to say. They may get asked questions by the defendant or the prosecutor, and of course they have to answer those questions unless the judge says otherwise. And that as well, having a witness in the case for the prosecutors will strengthen their case. Just as well, if they have a witness for the defense case, will strengthen their case to not get the defendant prosecuted or even get them a lesser charge. But with the witness, they just have to understand there is no he say, she say that could be involved in the case. And then after all of that is done, the judge let the jurors know that, they tell them what they're responsible for, what they're supposed to do. And they have them go in the back, and which is the deliberation part of it. And they discuss amongst themselves, or the jurors, they discuss, about the case, all the evidence that was presented. And then once they do have a final decision on what they all decide as one, they, let the bailiffs know that they're ready, and they came to a conclusion of what they will be doing. The judge is notified. Everyone is called back into the courtroom, and then they're giving the ruling. And they typically have one of the jurors, a specific juror, that'll stand up and read off whether the defendant have been found guilty or not guilty, and then they'll name the charges, count 1 or count 2, however many charges there may be. And after everything is taken in consideration, and the jurors has came up with their decision on what they decided on as one, that's when the judge will take in consideration everything that he or she have heard in the courtroom, all the evidence that they have seen, the statements that they have heard from any witnesses, the victim, the victim's family, the defendant, the defendant's family. From there, they will make the decision whether the defendant will be sentenced or will the the defendant not be charged at all, and charges will be dropped. If the defendant is sentenced, then that's when more things come into play, and they may be, held into the jail until it's time for sentencing, because sometimes it'll be at the same case. Sometimes they'll have to be called back for sentencing. And then once they're called back for sentencing, that's when by that time, the judge have had time to review everything and decides what sentence fits that person best, if they have to wait to come back to court for sentencing. And then they'll come back from sentencing, and the judge will sentence them and give them the time they may give them. And that's all for the video today for this case, and about all of the team players in the case. And in this case, we went over this the main players, the central players, and the ending players, like basketball. Thank you guys. You guys have a blessed day.